There is a form of self-mastery so rare that even strong men fall silent in its presence. Today, you will discover the ancient samurai principle that can literally restructure your brain's architecture, transforming you into someone others look at and think, how is that level of discipline even possible? Have you ever witnessed that person who never wavers, who rises before dawn without negotiation, who speaks their word into existence, who moves through challenges like water flowing around stone? While others collapse by the second week, they endure. While others make elaborate plans that crumble at first contact with difficulty, they simply execute. And you know what people whisper about them? That's not normal. That's not human. But what they don't understand is that this person discovered something the samurai knew 8 centuries ago. A principle so powerful it dissolves the very part of you that hesitates, that negotiates, that breaks promises to yourself. They call it the death of the old mind. And once you understand how it works, you will never be the same person again. But before I reveal this ancient system, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment below on the one area of your life where you want to eliminate all hesitation. This helps the channel reach others who are ready for this level of transformation. Now, let's begin. The story I'm about to tell you begins with a man named David, a software architect, 34 years old, successful by every external measure. But David carried a secret shame. He was at war with himself, and he was losing every battle. Every Monday morning arrived with the same ritual, grand declarations of change. This week, I'll wake up at 5. This week, I'll train every day. This week, I'll meditate. This week, I'll read instead of scrolling. By Wednesday, the negotiations would begin. Maybe 6:30 is early enough. Maybe 3 days a week is realistic. Maybe next week is better timing. By Friday, complete surrender. Sunday night, the cycle would reset with fresh promises built on the wreckage of the previous week's failures. David had tried everything the modern world offered. Habit tracking apps that mocked him with broken chains. Accountability partners who eventually stopped responding to his texts. Reward systems that he gamed until they became meaningless. Motivational videos that inspired him for as long as the screen was glowing. He was fighting something he couldn't see, something that lived deeper than willpower, deeper than motivation. He was fighting the very architecture of his identity. Until the night he discovered why samurai warriors could maintain absolute discipline for decades without a single moment of wavering. And it had nothing to do with strength. It had everything to do with death. In the mountain temples of feudal Japan, there existed a practice so profound, it transformed ordinary men into beings of unshakable, absolute resolve. The samurai understood something that modern psychology has only recently validated through brain imaging technology. Your mind operates on 2 fundamental levels: the surface mind that makes decisions, and the identity mind that simply is. Every commitment you make falls into one of 2 categories in your brain's processing system: reversible or irreversible. Reversible commitments live in constant negotiation. Your mind treats them as suggestions, options to be reconsidered when conditions change, when you feel tired, when obstacles appear. But irreversible commitments bypass negotiation entirely. They become part of your identity architecture. When a samurai took his vows before his master and his clan, he wasn't making a promise. He was performing an identity death and rebirth ceremony. He was declaring himself dead as one type of person and alive as another. The community witnessed this transformation. The old self died in public. The new self was born in public. There was no return path, because the person who might have returned no longer existed. Modern neuroscience reveals exactly why this worked. When you make a behavior public, your primitive brain interprets failure as a survival threat. Your ancestors who lost status within the tribe faced exile, which meant death. Your brain still processes social failure this way. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, treats public commitment failure as a threat to your very existence. This isn't metaphorical. This is measurable neuroscience. Researchers at Harvard have discovered that public declaration activates the same neural pathways as physical danger. Your brain literally cannot distinguish between breaking a public vow and facing mortal peril. David learned this the hard way. He had been making private promises to himself for years, treating his mind like a negotiating partner instead of understanding what the samurai knew. Your mind is not your ally in transformation. Your mind is the guardian of your current identity, and it will fight to maintain that identity with everything it has. The moment David decided to apply the samurai principle, the real battle began. He wrote on paper, in his own handwriting, "I am someone who rises at 5 every morning and trains for 30 minutes without exception for 90 consecutive days." He signed it with his full name. He posted it on every social media platform he used. He told his wife, his colleagues, his friends. He even told his mother. Their reactions were immediate and predictable. His wife said he was being dramatic. His colleagues suggested he was setting himself up for failure. His friends made jokes about his sudden intensity. Perfect. Every person who doubted him became fuel for his transformation. Every morning when his mind began its familiar routine of negotiation, he thought about having to post online that he had failed after 3 days, having to look his wife in the eyes and admit he was just another man who couldn't keep his word to himself. The public declaration made quitting more painful than continuing, but the real war was just beginning. Even with social accountability burning like fire behind him, David still faced the daily insurrection of his old mind. His body didn't care about reputation. It wanted comfort when it was tired. It wanted warmth when it was cold. It wanted sleep when the alarm rang in the darkness. The public declaration had ended the negotiation about whether to do it, but he was still fighting biology every single morning. That's when he discovered the samurai's second principle, the elimination of time as a variable. Every day you waste precious mental energy on the same pointless question: when should I do this? Now or after coffee? Morning or night? Before work or after? This decision fatigue burns glucose in your prefrontal cortex, the very fuel needed for discipline. You deplete your willpower deciding when to use your willpower instead of simply using it. David chose 5 in the morning, not because he was naturally a morning person, not because he enjoyed watching sunrises. He chose 5 in the morning because the world was asleep, silent, and distraction-free. No emails demanding attention, no phone calls interrupting focus, no traffic delaying plans, no excuses hiding in the shadows of circumstance. The time wasn't about optimization, it was about elimination. Eliminating every possible gateway to delay. The first week was psychological warfare. David's mind deployed every weapon in its arsenal. You're exhausted. This isn't sustainable. You'll burn out. One day won't matter. You can start tomorrow. But something had already shifted in his neural architecture. The old David, the one who negotiated, rationalized, delayed, had died in the public vow. The person now alive had only one path forward. By the second week, his body began to anticipate the ritual. He started waking 2 minutes before his alarm. His nervous system was preparing for what it now recognized as inevitable. On the 14th morning, his feet hit the floor before his conscious mind even engaged. No thought, no choice, just movement. This is what the samurai called dissolution of choice. When you eliminate alternatives, you eliminate internal conflict. But David discovered a hidden trap that destroys most transformations before they can root deeply. His time was fixed, yet he kept changing what he did during that time. Some mornings felt right for push-ups. Other days, running seemed smarter. Sometimes yoga whispered for attention. His mind had found a new negotiation point. Instead of resisting when, it began negotiating what. 30 minutes at 5 had become consistent, but the practice itself was unstable. This is where the samurai principle becomes truly ruthless. You don't just fix the time, you fix everything. Same exercises, same sequence, same duration, same intensity. The samurai called this the way of no alternatives. When every variable is locked, the mind surrenders, because nothing is left to debate. David eliminated all choice. 10 push-ups, 5-minute plank, 15 minutes of movement. In that exact order, every single day. His friends called him robotic. His wife said he was becoming obsessive, but they misunderstood. Robotic was the objective. David wasn't seeking creativity. He was building automatic identity. The third week brought rebellion. Every morning his old mind screamed its final desperate arguments. This is boring. You're not a machine. Change it before you lose your sanity. But David had learned the ancient truth. Boredom is resistance in disguise. Variety isn't freedom. Variety is where consistency dies. Every deviation, every tweak, every change of pace creates cracks where the old identity can crawl back in. By the fourth week, the breakthrough arrived like a ghost in motion. He was halfway through his routine before he even realized he had begun. His body was executing the sequence like a pianist playing a piece memorized into bone and marrow. This, neuroscientists call automaticity. When an action repeats in identical context for roughly 66 days, the basal ganglia assumes control. The behavior no longer requires effort. You're no longer choosing, you're simply being. On the 35th day, David caught the flu. On the 40th day, he was traveling for work. This was where his former identity would have snapped in half. Sick day equals rest day. Travel equals exception. This is where most people fall. Not because they lack discipline, but because they wait for perfect conditions. Conditions that never exist. But the samurai understood what modern psychology now proves through brain imaging. Every gap, even one, strengthens the old neural pathway. Every missed day is a vote for who you used to be. Your brain treats absence as evidence. Maybe this new self isn't real. A river never stops flowing. In drought, it becomes thin, but it flows. The moment it stops, it is no longer a river, only a memory of water. Your discipline is the same. A single gap doesn't just pause the identity, it dissolves it. What saved David when life hit him hardest was understanding this law. Practice doesn't require perfection. It requires continuity. When he was sick, he did 5 push-ups instead of 10. When traveling, he practiced in his hotel room at the same hour, no matter the time zone. The ritual wasn't pristine, but it lived. Nothing was flawless. Everything moved forward. This is what the samurai called practice without gaps. Your commitment must exist independent of mood, weather, energy, or comfort. You don't practice when you feel like it. You practice because practice is who you are. By day 60, people around him felt something shift. Colleagues said he seemed sharper, calmer, more anchored. His wife noticed he didn't flinch under stress the way he used to. Friends said small inconveniences no longer rattled him. But David knew the truth. The transformation wasn't just in behavior. It was in identity. He had proven something to himself. And once a mind sees proof of who it can be, it never returns quietly. The transformation was only beginning. But even the most disciplined warrior eventually faces chaos no schedule can predict. Life attacks from angles you never rehearsed. Your child wakes sick at 4 a.m. Your car dies on the way to practice. Your boss demands overtime that shatters your routine. These aren't laziness, they're fracture points. Identity dies where decisions are unprepared. Every time a new obstacle appears, you must choose. And choice under stress is where the old self resurrects. Transformation is broken not by weakness, but by indecision. Zen monasteries have practiced every single day for over 800 years. Earthquakes, war, famine, snow collapsing rooftops. Yet the bell rings and monks sit. How? Because they never decide under pressure. The answer exists before the obstacle. If the hall floods, meditation moves to the dining room. If the dining room burns, practice continues in the courtyard. If the courtyard freezes, the kitchen becomes the dojo. No meeting, no debate, no thinking, just execution. David learned this lesson the day reality came with teeth. Day 57. A family emergency forces him to drive through the night. He returns home at 4:30 a.m., eyes burning, body shaking. The old David would whisper, "Tomorrow, you deserve rest." But this David had prepared for war. He had pre-solved every disruption he had ever used as an excuse. No thinking, no negotiation, only identity. So at 5 a.m., he stepped into his driveway and performed 5 push-ups on concrete, muscles trembling from the night. Neighbors stared. Perfect. When your discipline looks unreasonable to ordinary people, you're finally close to the truth. Normal people get normal results. You did not come here for normal. The power of pre-solutions is not convenience. It is identity protection. When your brain knows that nothing can stop the practice, it stops searching for exits. It becomes still. A Yale scholar who studies decision fatigue found pre-decided actions triple long-term adherence. Your mind performs when choices are removed. And then the shift happened. By day 75, David would realize he was halfway through his routine before he remembered starting it. The behavior was no longer a task. It was reflex, like water running downhill, like breathing. His wife noticed first. "You're different," she whispered one morning. Not dramatic, not louder, just present. This was the energy of reliability, the rarest currency in the world. Day 90, David stood as someone his past self would not recognize. People spoke to him differently. A subtle respect, not for loud achievements, but for quiet consistency. The samurai predicted this outcome centuries ago. When you eliminate hesitation, you eliminate limitations. When you become a person who cannot break a promise to yourself, you enter the world others think is impossible. Not because it is hard, but because it is uncomfortable. If this principle lit something inside you, subscribe, comment your new identity below, and step onto the path. The warrior is not built in easy days. The warrior is built in the moment you decide there is no way back. Now it's your turn to step onto the path. In the comments below, declare the identity you choose to embody from this day forward. Not a goal, not a plan, an identity. Who do you become when hesitation ends? Write it, seal it, and let this be the first step of your own unbreakable self.